Hello, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell, for my Libra New Moon Deep Dive video for the 16th of October 2020 at 7:31 p.m. Universal Central Time. Before I begin, if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Also, if you'd like to take advantage of my unique special offer, where you can buy your forecast for year 2021 and a character analysis, but get the rest of year 2020 free, plus 30% off. This is based on your unique birth data of time, date and place of birth. No two reports are the same. This will give you searing insights into the upcoming trends, both the challenges but also the opportunities you can take advantage of. This helps you to ascend way above just your zodiac sign forecast. But once I've outlined what this new moon is about in terms of the event itself, I am going to give you a detailed sign-by-sign forecast from Aries through to Pisces. So please do stay with me. So this Libra new moon is all about balance. And Libra energy is very much about relationships. But the ruler of Libra, Venus, is actually in an opposition with the sign of Neptune, suggesting that there could be some shifting, misty influences over the next month when it comes to how we interact with the people in our situations. Now, this can be in a personal situation, it can be in a more professional environment, can be around family, can be around friends. It doesn't just have to be around a love relationship. But you can see next to the sun and the moon, there's a little symbol, and that's the fixed star of Speaker. Speaker on the ascendant or the sun of someone's natal horoscope is really auspicious. This points towards the opportunity to gain acclaim for our ideas. So if we can work in a progressive way over this next 4 weeks in terms of how we interact with others, it's definitely a rather noble idea. Also, you can see that the ascendant of this chart at this time and in this location is at 21 degrees in Gemini, but that's conjunct the North Node and also the part of Fortune. But they're just into the 12th house. And I think what that's saying essentially is that listening and tuning in to the higher consciousnesses of everybody's needs, everyone's direction of travel around dealing with this massive year that we've had, is very much about being attuned to the sharing of information. And of course, Libra can be a very democratic, a very fair-minded sign. But of course, it's also opposed by Mars. So we have a real challenge here because Mars, the ruler of Aries, is in retrograde, and this is a much feistier, much more assertive influence. But also, if you see at the top of the chart in the 8th house, we also have that cluster of energy in the sign of Capricorn still. And more precisely, Mars and Pluto are in a right angle. This points towards a real desire to get what we want. The important thing with this particular combination is not to ride roughshod over other people's rights. It's all very well to be eager and to be enthusiastic, but we also must play by the rules. Also, broadly, this cluster of energy in the sign of Capricorn is squaring up, particularly Saturn and Mars, with the new moon in Libra. So what we have here essentially is a T-square. And this T-square creates a kind of tension. So whatever we try to do, there are ramifications. So how those ramifications will influence your zodiac sign are explained in due course. But remember, I said before that the ruler of Libra is Venus, and that's compromised on this particular event chart by the role of Neptune. So clarity is going to be important in relationships, but also not trying too hard, not trying to force the pace too much, not being overly ambitious to the point where it discounts other people's needs, feelings, points of view. So we have to try and keep that supreme sense of balance, which is so important to the sign of Libra. Also, Mercury, the planet of communication, is deep diving in Scorpio, and that's in opposition to Uranus. So that's creating quite a lot of electric energy and can see us more direct, wanting to be more to the point, finding it a little bit more difficult to be the diplomatic part of the sign of Libra. So I think this is a time when we will be thinking about those relationships. We can make progress, but we have to be mindful of our approach, the way that we're going to reach our goals, and as much as we possibly can to be as inclusive as possible to the people that we're interacting with. But also it may be important to reinforce our boundaries. Libra energy can be very sacrificing, particularly over the last 8 years or so since Neptune has been in the 6th house of Libra, which is very much to do with being of service. But I think with all that energy in the 4th house of Libra, that's very emotional. And if there's been a scenario in your situation, whether you're a Libran or not, where it does feel it's been all give and no get, I think this new moon is also saying that it's not just about keeping a relationship in balance, it's also telling people about what we need as individuals, as well as understanding what they need from us. So the whole concept of relating is under the astral microscope. What we're prepared to give, what we need, but what others require from us. Please stay with me to get your in-depth forecast from Aries through to Pisces next. So Aries, I think it is possible that a key relationship could reach a crisis point in your situation over the next month. It's possible that this could be a professional tie, especially if you feel that someone is inhibiting or blocking your desire to be a free spirit, but also to demonstrate just how talented you are to take on more responsibilities. But then again, if you are in a position of leadership or management or a supervisory role, it is important to bring people with you. It's not just about telling. It's not a case of do as I say. It's a case of do as I do. And that can be a really helpful guiding force for you. But with Uranus and Mercury in opposition, and Venus and Neptune in opposition, there could be some murky stuff going on around shared finances. So try to keep that area as clear as possible. But if you do need to say exactly how you feel, don't be fearful of that. And if a relationship really, in your humble opinion, has reached the end of the road, then try to accept that, but also try to let go in as dignified a way as possible. Because any kind of power battles that ensue over the next month are not going to be good for you or anyone else that you may be involved with. Now, Taurus, this new moon occurs in the part of your horoscope that's all to do with everyday practicalities. And if you have been resisting giving up some of those calorific goodies that you're rather keen on, this new moon is asking you to think again. But it also suggests that with Mars in a very psychological part of your situation, if someone's a bit critical about your routine, your appearance, your performance at work, it actually could really light the blue touch paper, because with Uranus in your sign in opposition to Mercury, this could see you reacting in a much firmer but also a quite surprisingly sensitive but rather much more outspoken way. Part of the reason for this is that Mars and Pluto are in a square, of course, and Pluto's in a part of your situation that's to do with the truth. And I think because Mars is in that area that's to do with past hurts, secrets, complexes, maybe something does need to come out over the next month. Maybe it is an uncomfortable truth you have to share with someone, and it may not be easy for you and will take great courage. But you know, if you go for it, it can be so liberating for you to get it off your chest. Sometimes things that we bottle up can have a profound influence on our emotional and physical health. And this is a time to look after both sides of that equation, not just what you eat, drink, and how much you exercise. It is about how you feel deeper inside of yourself. So If there is a vulnerability you need to discuss with someone on a confidential basis, then do use the energy of this new moon to do so. Now, Gemini, your sign is obviously ruled by the planet Mercury, and Mercury continues in a very brittle, precise part of your horoscope. Now that's good for grappling with the details of situations, but because it's opposite Uranus, that could be at times making you feel a little bit on edge. It's possible your nervous system can seem a little bit overstimulated, like you've got too much adrenaline, maybe hard to switch off at night. But this new moon does occur in the most sociable and most gloriously loving part of your situation. What's not to like? Well, the interesting thing, I think, is not necessarily the opposition between Mars and the new moon. It's more about that cluster of energy in your 8th house. So something that's quite intense, maybe it's to do with control, jealousy, envy. Maybe someone is being a bit too possessive around either your social situation or your romantic situation. Or if you're drawn to someone, if you're single, it's possible it could be someone with a very magnetic personality, but not someone necessarily that you're convinced you can get on with. But that is going to not make them any the less evocative and tempting to you. So this new moon can stir up quite a lot of complex energies. But one of the good things you can do with this new moon is decide on your time management, who you're going to spend time with, who you are going to, or where you're going to invest your energies the most. And that can be actually very empowering. And if you can, just try to steer clear of those politics, because they won't be good for you. Now, Cancer, this new moon occurs in your sector home, family, emotions, which of course is the area that's governed by your ruler, the moon. So that's a kind of simpatico with the basic energies of your sign. But the key is, however, is that on the other side of the heavens, you still have Mars in a very prominent location, and that's forging in opposition to the Sun and the Moon, a T-square with Saturn and Pluto in your sector of relating. This can be a very sensitive time, therefore, for relationships around the family or where you live, but also for professional ambitions. And it's all about trying to work in a collegiate way with others, because there is a kind of trend in society where everybody seems to want the maximum for themselves as an individual. But actually, that's a little bit unachievable. And the best way to proceed is to set some reasonable goals and objectives for ourselves, but make sure that works for the people that are really close to us as well. So that means a little bit of give and take. So this new moon is saying to you that if you're moving, adapting, changing something at the heart or basis of your world, then it is going to be important to seek as much goodwill as possible with the people that you're closely interacting with. Now, Leo, this new moon occurs in your sector of everyday communications. So it gives you an opportunity, particularly with that link to the fixed star speaker, to really frame your ideas and to raise your profile about the thoughts that you're having. But some of the things that you may want to change are things that have perhaps endured for some while, patterns, systems, approaches, responsibilities, obligations. That's all governed by those 3 major planets in the sign of Capricorn. Now, Mars, on the other hand, is seeing you desperate to liberate yourself from any straitjacket there may be. So it's about tactics, and of course you can't go to the door marked freedom completely. There is going to be some compromises to be made, and it's about explaining what you want to do to others and bringing them with you. If you just become totally militant and say, look, I'm not going to continue with this situation where you've been very supportive in the past, that's actually going to be very confusing. So have a strategy about how you're going to create this greater freedom that Mars is pushing you to have, but understanding that there are going to be some things you are still going to have to do. So it's finding a better alignment between responsibility and your need for freedom. And how you do that is through communication. So good communication. Don't be hasty. Don't react to things too quickly if people have objections. Try to hear what they have to say, process it, and go again. Now, Virgo, Perhaps one of the most potent parts of this particular new moon cycle for you is that at the point of the new moon, Venus is in opposition with Neptune. Now, this can create the potential for someone really amazing to come into your world in the next month, or it could mean that some kind of disappointment or disillusion could creep in around a relationship. And potentially it may be because you have different core values. Now, it could just boil down to pure money. So if your approach to resources, spending money, saving money is very different from anyone you're closely involved with, whether it's a business partner, a flatmate, or a personal partner, then that can cause some tensions, particularly because Mars is in the 8th house of your situation, which can make you more impulsive, but it is being squared by Saturn and also Pluto. So your desire for anything really, if you feel a strong desire for anything, just take it down to the core of, is this right for you in terms of your core values? And is it right for you financially? It's as simple as that. And keep the lines of communication as crystal clear, open as you can. Because I do feel that there can be some surprise exchanges over the next few weeks. Now, Libra, obviously for you, you're the primary sign in this equation because it's your new moon. And ordinarily, this is an opportunity for you to relaunch yourself in some way, to give yourself a glamorous makeover, to reactivate a desire, a process, or a strand. And you can still do those things. You just need to be aware of the astro skyscape that we're dealing with at the moment, which is enormously complex, to be honest. Mars on the other side of the heavens can make you more assertive. And I think that gathering of the 3 planets in Capricorn, which has been going on all year pretty well for you, that's kind of saying, what do you get out of situations in an emotional context? If you're doing too much compromising, or you're focusing too much on just what you need as an individual, that's likely to cause a problem, either from others or for you. So it's trying to find the balance. And psychologically, because your ruler is in an opposition with Neptune, it is possible that something that you've been very reluctant to talk about may need to be brought to the surface and discussed in a much more straightforward way. Now, Mercury and Uranus give you an opportunity to do that, to be more pointed, and perhaps you can actually gain enormously from this new moon. But I think it's about standing in your truth. That's absolutely vital. Now for you, Scorpio, this new moon occurs in your 12th house, very psychological, but Mars, your ruler, is in the 6th house. And I think that's kind of saying to you, however much you may be wanting to crack on, be more enterprising, work hard, focus on what you can affect in a sort of very regular way, you have to try to embrace that more tender side of your nature. It could be your shadow side, your subconscious, the things you don't really want to look at. Maybe there's some issues to do with your past, but I feel this is an opportunity to engage with those things. With Mercury in your sign in opposition to Uranus, you could surprise someone by challenging them in a very direct way, completely out of the blue. This can happen very, very quickly, about something that does relate to a very sensitive or tender matter. But if you do this, I think it can help to give you a step towards closure. But the electric energy of that connection between those 3 planets in the sign of Capricorn and also Mars, your ruler, suggests if you try to do too much too quickly, it will just stress you out. So try to slow things down and just prioritize on what's absolutely essential. Don't overload yourself with too many obligations. Give yourself time to think, to breathe, but particularly to embrace that more tender, perhaps even vulnerable side of your nature. Now, Sagittarius, yours is the hale and hearty sign of the Zodiac, and your ruler Jupiter forges a right angle with Mars on this particular new moon, and that actually can be quite upbeat. But the crucial thing with Mars and Jupiter is that you don't promise something that you can't deliver on. So it's possible that you could feel very generous or very loving towards someone that you're drawn towards, but remember that with Saturn and Pluto in a right angle with Mars, that's much more complex. So you don't want to get into a situation where you've made a commitment and then you're feeling that you need to back off that and withdraw. Actually, this new moon is very much about time management, and it's possible that you may need to juggle things a little bit. Your nervous system is being put on edge somewhat by Uranus's opposition with Mercury, and in terms of your worldly objectives, however much you turn on the charm to try to convince someone of your attributes, they may actually be a little bit unsure about where you're coming from. I think the most important thing during this next month is to act naturally. That famous country and western song that the Beatles covered, or Ringo Starr covered, and that's a good guideline for you to follow over the next month. Now, Capricorn, obviously you have the new moon in your sector of ambition, and so a great opportunity for you to really polish up your goals and objectives and your direction of travel. But to get to the summit, it's going to be important that you make sure that things are working at the basis of your situation. So base camp needs to have the right equipment, the right food. You need to be able to deal with any kind of challenges that are going to come your way. And an expedition that's not properly equipped could flounder. So whatever goals you're going for at this time, it is very important that you think very carefully about what the consequences could be. And some of those could be unintended ones, because there is such a thrust of energy coming from Jupiter in your sign in its angle to Mars, which can be good as long as you don't try too hard. But because of the more restraining influence of Saturn and the more psychological and political influence of Pluto squaring up with Mars, I just feel that whatever you're trying to achieve, it's got to work for you as an individual, in terms of your professional situation, but most importantly in terms of your emotional and home life. If any of those is out of kilter, you're going to feel it quite quickly, I feel. However, someone could raise the concept of some kind of trip, and that actually might be a really good thing to do with Venus in opposition to Neptune. If you get away somewhere that helps to move the moment, if that's possible in your particular COVID environment, then actually I feel that can be very healing. Also, friends can provide some interventions in a surprising way. You may even hear from someone you've not heard from for some while, or perhaps meet someone new, just kind of click. There's an electricity between you, which is actually very pleasing. But you can make progress towards those ambitions, but it has to work at all the different levels for you. Now, Aquarius, this new moon occurs in your sister air sign of Libra, which is very much about expansion, travel, higher education. What's not to like? Well, the other side of the heavens, we have Mars. And that's kind of saying that if you rush all this, you could stub your toe. And that toe comes from the fact that your traditional ruler of Saturn continues to be in a very tricky angle with both Mars, but particularly this new moon. The T-square that we have here suggests that a sensitive issue can take on a life force of its own over the next month. So it's going to be important to stay very attuned to all the lessons of the last couple of years. I know it's been really hard because I've experienced it all myself. But remember, salvation is coming on the 21st of December this year, the winter solstice, when we have the conjunction between Saturn and Jupiter in your sign for the first time since 1405. And that is going to be a new dawn. It really, really is. So what you're doing at this stage is getting more and more aware and educated to the deeper psychological trends that have been at work in your life historically, that are going on now, and the way that you need to change that. And knowledge and insight are going to be your greatest assets. Now, finally, but not least, of course, Pisces. Now, Pisces, your ruling planet of Neptune, is in opposition with Venus on this particular new moon. And that can actually be very good for romance, but it can also be very distorting. It's one of those aspects that can be incredibly good or incredibly bad. So just be aware that if you're meeting someone for the first time and they seem to be the bee's knees, well, they may be. But equally, just hold a bit of yourself back until you get to know what their true motives are about, because The new moon for you is in a very sultry, intense part of your horoscope, and it could give you a tremendous desire to connect with someone at a very intimate level. It can also be a time when you're thinking about your long and short-term resources and your longer-term plan for life. But no one on this particular new moon can hurry, because the complex relationship of all the planets involved means that we have to do it on a step-by-step basis. Now, because Uranus is in an opposition with Mercury, I do feel that some information is going to come in which can illuminate you to a great degree and also delight you, because it can come about quite suddenly, but it really can be like a light bulb moment for you. But just be aware, the sun and the new moon is going through a part of the year where some things could be coming to an end in your situation. But if so, you're clearing the way for the new possibilities. But because this is a transitional time, it may be a little awkward or strained at times, but you are working towards a greater possibility that is emerging for you further down the track. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Please do check out my special offer for year 2021 by seeing the link beneath this video. Remember, you can get your year ahead forecast plus the rest of this year free, plus your character analysis, plus 30% off, all based on your time, date and place of birth. And thank you so much for joining me. Stay safe, take care, good luck and goodbye.